Good evening, everybody. I'm going to start the joint meeting. It is 5:30, and I want to be on time. So I am commencing the special joint meeting, Ojai City Council and Planning Commission, 5:30, May 26, 2015. Could I get roll call for City Council?
Councilmember Wyrick.
Here.
Councilmember Haney.
Here.
Councilmember Clapp.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz.
Here.
Mayor Lara.
Here. And roll call for Planning Commission?
Commissioner Zabilla. Here. Commissioner Nicklin.
Yeah.
Commissioner Merck. Commissioner Lajowski.
Here.
Commissioner Jaglio.
Here.
Vice Chair Kathy Nolan. Here. And Chair Stephen Foster.
Here.
And could I have Chair Foster lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we don't have on the agenda any public comment section, but since we have a couple people voicing, requesting comment, especially Miss Wild, she has to go to a school board meeting, so I want to make sure that I do grant public comment at this time. And I do have another card by Mr. Shapiro, so if anybody else wishes to talk, they could at this moment. But we'll start with Miss Wild. Yes, if you could step to the podium.
Thank you for letting me go early. I just wanted to share my opinion on the protocol of the early meetings. I think they are imperative and important that the members of the Planning Commission have an opportunity to speak with the city planner and the clerk or whoever. You really want the Planning Commission members to have as much information and so they can make as wise choices and have background information. And if you eliminate those meetings, you're going to require the Planning Commission meetings to be 3 times as long. There's going to be information that's not shared. And I just think that, this isn't Washington, D.C., Mr. Wyrick. And I feel that we are not trying to hide things from the people. I don't think there's a best practice that's not being honored. I think it's very important that these meetings happen and that they are part of a best practice because they're helping make the Planning Commission members knowledgeable about a topic that's coming. So that's my only comment. Thank you. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Shapiro?
Good evening, everybody. Michael Shapiro for the record, Ojai, California. Like the big gorilla in the room that no one sees, I want to come out and say that our city is in crisis right now. Charges are flying against the Planning Commission that they violated the Brown Act. Charges seem to be emanating from a small group, but somehow, miraculously, so widely disseminated that a significant number of our population believes it, even though it's not true. The Planning Commission did not violate the Brown Act, period. Some of the same folks who've been spreading that rumor or that charge have been also calling for a new city manager. They also want to make Ojai all of a sudden a charter city. Why is there such disunity and dissension? I don't know, but I know it's not healthy for our city. It leaves us very vulnerable. We have to be united. Ojai is, in fact, in pretty damn good shape. Our city manager and successive city councils have been doing an incredible job. They balanced the budget at $8.3 million after rising out of a recession when our reserve funds were pretty much depleted. Ojai has a $2.7 million capital improvement budget. Our streets are being repaved. We are debt-free. Ojai continues to improve our infrastructure. We have banned plastic bags, styrofoam, instituted a solar height limit, a water-wise landscaping ordinance, a dark sky lighting ordinance, a cell tower regulation. We have supported Ojai Flow against Golden State Water, and Golden State Water's days are numbered. Ojai has adopted 2 state-mandated housing elements without losing local control. And it's protected the integrity of our general plan at the same time. Yet there's still folks who continue to sow these seeds of disharmony and distrust. And in doing so, end up dividing both our elected and our appointed officials and the public. I believe the city atmosphere now has been so poisoned that who would want to even serve on a board? It's like, it's ridiculous. And if there ever was a time for taking measures to ease and fix what's happening, it's now. I therefore, this may sound wild, but I think it's pretty simple and it's done all the time, all across the nation. I urge the City Council, together with the Planning Commission and Building Appeals Board, the City Manager, the City Attorney, to come together during a genuine weekend retreat, not to discuss city agenda items, but to discuss grievances among one another, to come to terms, to seek understanding, and to finally reach calm. One of the great resources available for hosting such a retreat is right here in the Ojai Valley. I'm talking about the Ojai Foundation. They are professional, skilled people whose job in education is to do this kind of very thing, to get disparate, disagreeing people together so they could come together as one again. I'll only say, for the sake of the city to remain united and strong and to restore morale, we need to do this. In the 60s, like a lot of us here in this room, we used to stand up and shout that the people united can never be defeated. I think this city, if this city is united and as one, we will continue to be successful facing the adversarial things that hit us all the time, whether it's Weldon Canyon, whether it's trucks coming down, whatever it is. We need to come together, people, and I urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beam?
Members of the Planning Commission, my name is Craig Beam. I don't know you. I do know the City Council. Let me give you a little insight on why I'm speaking. I'm a former city attorney. I've been a land use and environmental attorney for over 40 years. I'm very, very familiar with the legally mandated processes City Council and advisory boards have to go through. And I've sat with endless Planning Commission meetings, probably a couple of thousand as a city attorney. Here's my point. When I read the staff report, administrative report, I had two comments I wanted to make. As a citizen, and I've been here about a decade now, I have complete confidence in the integrity of the Planning Commission. I don't think you've violated any ethical norms or what have you. However, I do think that the Planning Commission has been let down in the context of not being provided with more information about technical rules involving conductive hearings. There's direct case law that I had to deal with because it was adopted or proclaimed by the Cal Supreme Court when I was still a city attorney, that deals with the conduct of meetings and what are called especially certain types of meetings where you have to make findings of fact that are normally called quasi-judicial meetings. You're really treated as sitting like a judge or a judge and jury. The requirements of those meetings make it very, very difficult for you to also observe the obligation that you have to make sure that the public is participants and is aware of all facts that are being considered or information being considered with respect to the subject matter of the hearings. So the issue with pre-meetings and what have you, that by the way, when I was a city attorney, used to be in vogue with a lot of cities, and after case law came out, went exactly the opposite way. This is well over 20 years ago. Is all about whether or not you're complying with state law as it relates to this. And this is not exactly hidden law. I mean, if you want to read a treatise on land use law, who, by the way, is written by a friend of mine, unfortunately dead now, they will give you the rules of the game. But where I think the city has let you down as a whole is by not explaining the why of it. And to me, the why of it has nothing to do with the Brown Act. I don't have any evidence that you violated the Brown Act or would want to violate the Brown Act. But you have to understand that the public out here has a right to understand the information that's being conveyed in some cases, not in every hearing and not everything, such that hearings that you have, there may be some byplay about ordinance interpretation or what have you that are directly germane to your decision, has to be known or made available to the public. And there's no way of doing it except to kind of open a meeting here, have your interaction as some cities do, and then go ahead with your decision-making process. So for me, this isn't about are you good people or bad people. Everything I've seen suggests you're good people and this is a good city. But you need some guidance about what the rules are, and the guidance is there to be provided, but I haven't seen it provided. This doesn't even mention the applicable law, and I'm going, oh God, you know. So I'm here occasionally to say I love my city. Like all converts to a new area or to a new city, I'm a zealot in favor of the city. But I think the Planning Commission would be better served by talking about the nature of the hearing process and the legal requirements, because these are in fact legal requirements. They're not merely choices or protocol, they're legal requirements. So I'm not here to outline those. I'd be glad to help, glad to provide information, but to say, you have my endorsement, but I also think you can't do your jobs without some additional help about technicalities that you have to observe, the city has to observe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question
Yes.
of our city attorney. Mr. Summers, are two council members legally allowed to meet together before a meeting?
Two council members is less than a quorum, assuming the item doesn't have any recusals that would make the quorum lower than the usual the usual three, pardon me. So that would mean that two council members can meet to discuss an item before a meeting.
Are three planning commissioners allowed to meet prior to a meeting?
Three planning commissioners can meet for the same reason that the planning commission is a 7-member body. Quorum is 4 members, again, assuming there's no recusals in play. 3 is less than a quorum, thus they can meet under the Brown Act. With regard to quasi-adjudicative hearings, Mr. Beam is correct that any information that the decision makers rely on, whether that be the council or the planning commission, has to be in the public's eye. That is accomplished if there is a pre-meeting on a matter. As I understand the way the pre-meetings have been gone, I've not attended those meetings, is the discussion that centers on the information available in the staff report and in the public file, i.e. solely on information that is otherwise available in the public record. That complies with the requirement for all information that is to be considered by quasi-adjudicative decision makers to be within the public's viewpoint. If any information was provided or discussed at a pre-meeting that was not part of the public record, that would present another concern.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Coyne?
Thank you very much, members of this joint Planning Commission Council meeting tonight. I'm supporting the ending to the pre-meetings, as I spoke at the last opportunity at a previous council meeting, and I'd like to echo the comments of Mr. Beam. I think the issue is to do with the public being aware of what goes on at meetings between city staff and planning commissioners, where some information may be discussed that isn't available to the public. I think that is the issue. It's nothing to do with the Brown Act. Nothing that I've heard discussed about this topic before has mentioned the Brown Act. I don't think that's relevant. I don't think we necessarily need to have a sort of encounter session at the Ojai Foundation, but I think it's important that information is available to the public. That's the crux of the matter. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at this time? No? Mr. Green? I'm just going to take a couple more so we because we do want to make sure that we have enough time. So if one or two are wanting to speak, I would raise our hands or move up to the front. Mr. Green.
Good evening. My name is Dan Green. I've been on elected boards, and the question that comes to mind is if they are discussing items which are already in writing and nothing that is out of the sight of the people, what is the basic purpose other than social of having a pre-meeting? If you're discussing what is in writing, and you're not adding anything to that, and everybody can read the same reports, the pre-meeting doesn't seem to have any purpose. And the appearance of it is that it's not, the perception is not good. And I think That's what we're dealing with. Whether it's legal or not, the perception is if you're meeting in private, out of the sight of the public, then people are more suspicious of what you're doing. And if you're not discussing anything but what's already written and everybody has access to it, then tell me what the purpose of the meeting is.
Great, and we will go into that in a little. And if you could please state your name for the record on when you get to the podium.
Tom Weber, Stewart Court, City of Ojai. I'm not here, and I don't know if pre-meetings are good, bad, or indifferent, and I think everyone in this room are good people and completely. My only part is it seems the way that it came out, this attack. I was here at the last meeting, I've read some emails and this and that part is what seems to be wrong to me. I do think and I don't know if there's been a formal apology to the people on the Planning Commission. I believe there should have been, and if there hadn't, I believe the mayor should have instructed that to take place. I'm on a board of realtors, have been for many years. We have many members that have all different viewpoints, but we don't go public with that. We try to do what is best for our members, which is what you're all trying to do, is what's best for the city of Ojai. So that's my only thing. If there wasn't a formal apology, I think there should be one, and it shouldn't be, whatever the words are, it shouldn't be followed with the word but or however. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll take one more. If not, then I'm going to close the public hearing or public comment, and we're going to go into our workshop session. So not seeing any, I will move on. Planning Commission protocols. Discussion about protocols for meetings with community development director prior to Planning Commission meetings. Now, I do want to set the floor, and I want to make sure that we understand the purpose of this joint meeting and the purpose of this subject. I do agree with comments made that necessarily there could have been the emails wasn't the best way to approach this item or this issue. And there was a lot of, I guess, perception to these pre-meetings in those emails. But regardless, when it was brought up to the council dais and Council Member Wyrick brought it up, it wasn't a formal attack on any of the planning commissioners. And I think on the last meeting, I think we could definitely, if you go back and review it, as a council, we do not discredit or we do not believe or have any belief that any planning commissioners are doing something illegal or are trying to construe a pre-notion to what what your planning commission meeting is going to be about. I think the main issue that as a council member / mayor was the practice. And at that meeting, I particularly asked questions about what the value was of those meetings and how we could approach it or how we could best make sense of it and put it out there where the public has the ability to see those meetings. And as a city, as a council member, somebody that values public participation, I want to make sure that we do the best practice there can be. And I just want to make it clear that as a council, none of us has ever accused any of the planning commissioners, and I would go as far as to any commissioners out there that they were doing something with malicious intent. And then I'm going to turn it back to Chair Foster for any further comments. And then I want to open up the floor to see what the best approach is. And I want to leave it wide open, whether leave the same practice, continue with the new one, and also if there's some opinions from our city attorney And I'm definitely open to what Mr. Beam said about due process. I do want to look at those options, but right now the purpose is I really want to see what the value, what the input of the Planning Commission is. So with that, I'll turn it to Mr. Foster, Chair Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Lara. Well, this all comes out of, spawns out of our April 28th City Council meeting, where it was agreed by the council that the question of pre-meetings needed to be addressed and discussed in further detail, which brings us all here this evening. I break it down. I wish it was simple enough for myself personally to break it down to one issue. I think there's more than one issue involved, and that's why we're here this evening. But for the sake of trying to bring balance of my opinion to the table here, I'd just like to start by saying the first issue is, I think it really echoes what Mayor Lara is suggesting. It was asserted by a council member that that although these pre-meetings are conducted with staff and members of the Planning Commission and do not violate any law and are legal, there remains the potential for a moral and ethical argument against conducting such meetings. I think it's a valid question, and I embrace the discussion. My second issue, however, is a little more complicated, a little more complex, a little more involved. And this arrived in the course of the item coming before the council, where certain emails were distributed. You've heard the email term pop up a few times. And I think it's important for the public to at least get a basic understanding what the implications of that are and how it impacts us as planning commissioners and the city for that matter. These emails were essentially distributed among city council members, staff, and actually went to the local newspaper at the time. It's undeniable that these emails were aimed at discrediting specifically the Planning Commission with general accusations and fallacious statements, attacking this commission's integrity along with our honor and our sense of justice. So there was definitely a personal affront felt in this, the way it came across. Now, I just want to say, I personally have no desire to mount a personal vendetta against those critics seeking to undermine the Planning Commission, our city management, or our other city personnel, including members of city council. I believe our time is best spent serving this city in an effort to continue to make it better by working together for the common good. I want to make that very clear. I have no personal vendetta against any person. However, I see a crime in the waste of time that it takes for us to come before the council, this community, to have to defend ourselves on such issues, because it extends beyond the one issue of a pre-meeting. It's deeper than that. But let's move on. So the discussion for tonight's staff will start off by clarifying once again publicly certain questions, and I think actually it was addressed pretty well already. And my first question is, in the light of these pre-meetings, and I'll address this to our legal counsel, have there been, which have been going on for some 20 years, by the way, okay? Have we been breaking the law in any manner that you're aware of or has been brought to your attention?
As I stated before, my understanding is that the pre-meetings have only involved discussion of information that was included in the public record. If that's the case, and if the case was that a quorum was always less than a quorum, including recusals when there was a situation involving a recusal, then no law was broken. With those two caveats, of course, because I wasn't present at 20 years worth of meetings and thus can't speak to each individual meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Summers. And my final question is actually addressed to staff, and it could be answered by our city manager or community development director. And essentially, it's prior to the issue coming before us this evening. My question is to them, and I never asked them this before. Have they ever received any questions or inquiries regarding the legal or moral, ethical legitimacy concerning our PC meetings, our PC pre-meetings? Has anything come before you as staff and management in the city prior to this issue coming as it has before?
No.
Thank you. So the public at home could hear, because Mr. Clark has no mic, he said no.
So we're talking, at least in the the term that our current city manager has been with us and our community development director. So I just wanted to start the conversation in that manner, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from my fellow planning commissioners and obviously the interaction with city council. So.
Okay, with that said, I'm going to turn it over and see if anybody has any more comments or just suggestions, etc. I'm going to turn it first to the planning commissioners.
Well, I'll start, if I may. I've come tonight with an open mind of, listening to all sides. For me, being on the planning commission, I'm on the planning commission because I love the city that I live in, and that's why I'm sitting here tonight. For me, the pre-meetings, we get our binders on a Friday, often on a Friday, and some of them have a large amount of stuff to go through, and they're questions that come up early in the week. And I found these pre-meetings very important, that you could just ask simple questions. And when we meet, we're taking up an hour of the planning director's time, where if we each individually met the planning director, it would maybe take 2-3 hours of her time during the day. And, they're already pushed and short-staffed. So, as I say, I'm here with an open mind to listen to all reasoning, and if things are changed, they changed within reason. So that's what I'd like to just start with right now.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Nolan.
Well, I'm going to, first of all, thank Chair Foster. I agree with his comments this evening and also with Commissioner Nicholin. But I do think there's two things going on here. I'm completely into transparency. If through our discussion we decide that we no longer have the pre-meetings in the format that we had them, and that somehow changes, I'm perfectly fine with that. But something must have happened where, after 20 years, all of a sudden the emails came up. We got the notice from Commissioner Wyrick. Something happened and changed, I don't know if it's the public or where it initiated, but the perception that something was going on here. And I do not also have a vendetta against anyone. I'm here to work together for the greater good of our community. And but I would like that to be known that I do think there's two things going on here. And I'm not sure if one thing led to the other or not, but I just want to say for the record that I do not want to be a part of anything that's decisive and that's splitting our community and the city council and the planning commission apart. I'd rather work together and communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner.
Lajowski.
I,
all right.
Even that it wasn't going to help me out with the pronunciation.
I just wanted to say, one of our public comments was that there should have been a formal apology, and I want to say that thank Council Member Wyrick for his effusive apology at our last Planning Commission meeting. And in that case, he did apologize for the manner in which this was brought up, and I think that was a good start for the meeting here today. So I think the public should be aware that there was an apology.
Any other input about the value of the pre-meeting, anything like that? No? No. Okay. Yes, Commissioner, you're going to have to, I'm so sorry. Sabella, sorry. Apologize.
I have some prepared comments, and I'm really hoping I don't really have to make them. But it really concerns me the way this discussion is already going, because it really unhooks the foundation of this issue from the outcome. And for now, I'm going to restrain myself, but I think the city council should absolutely leave these pre-meetings the way that they are, as a way to support this planning commission, to give us your vote of confidence that you believe in us that you know nothing untoward is happening, and really recognizing that this was a politically motivated attack. And when I get into my comments and people hear what was said in these emails, if they have not already read them already, they might be swayed. Thank you.
Any other comments? No, with that said, I'll turn it back to council to see if they have any other comments or questions for the planning commissioners. Commissioner Wyrick? I mean, Councilmember Wyrick.
I appreciate comments by the Planning Commission. And I think I'm on the record as far as what I said at the Planning Commission meeting to everybody. I don't think I need to repeat that. But yeah, I should have brought the issue up first to the Planning Commission. Yeah, before I brought it to council, and I should have done that. That doesn't mean I don't believe there's an issue. And again, for the record, I want to state that a lot of discussion about these emails, none of which involve anything that I said. I received some of them. I never replied to them. I get a lot of emails. But I think it comes down to, interestingly enough, what a very experienced gentleman just said a few minutes ago, Mr. Green, and Mr. Beam. If there's information that's being conveyed of substance, then that's supposed to be in public. And if there's no information conveyed of substance, then what's the purpose of the meeting? And in my opinion, there's an easy way to handle the productivity and the type of briefing time that the staff and the Planning Commission need, and to address the issue of transparency. Very simple. I think you can just have a publicly noticed workshop meeting, agenda meeting, where the Planning Commission comes together for a technical or agenda or a pre-meeting. Happens in many different jurisdictions, but it's noticed. Those that wish to come, participate, hear the questions and answers to those questions, have an opportunity to do so. Bring in, if it's a lunchtime or dinner time, bring in some food to make it a catered lunch to handle to facilitate the workshop, either in the conference room or right here in this meeting. Videotaping I don't think is important, but I think it is important still that if questions are asked and answers are being given relative to an application that involves public interest or the interests of the applicant, that we have one pre-meeting instead of two. It be noticed, and we proceed. I think that's the easy way to advance productivity and transparency. And I've thought about it a lot, and I think that I can't imagine I'm trying to think why that would not be an improvement, and I just want to throw that suggestion out.
Nicklin, do you have a comment?
Question. These public meetings, would there be public comment?
Well, if that's kind of a question I really haven't thought through. I think at the very least there needs to be the Q&A needs to be on the record. I would think if the applicant had a question about the code, for example, that would be appropriate. I think it'd be very important, and this is how it happens in other jurisdictions that I've been involved with what are called agenda meetings or pre-meetings. It's very strict that there's no deliberation, yay or nay, on the proposal. Any discussion for it or against it, that's out of order on those meetings. That's not on the agenda. But if there's a question about the code applicability or consistency with the general plan or something like that, why not?
So, yeah, then the time factor would concern me, because it would turn into, it could turn into a 2-hour, 3-hour meeting in an afternoon. Yep.
Well, again, I think that comes down to how the meetings are handled. If the The cities that I've seen that have done this are very strict, that any position for or against the decision is not to be discussed at the pre-meeting. It's simply an informational Q&A. What's the code? What are the issues, the technical issues, as all have talked about.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Blatz, sorry, Commissioner Nicklin, do you have further questions? Okay.
I feel like I'm in a particular situation that no one else is because I'm on the council, having served on the Planning Commission for 10 years and having been to these meetings. And my first thought is this is a lot to do about nothing. But then when I step back and think about it, it's probably more than that. And the reason my first impression is that is because I sat through these meetings, although I didn't regularly attend them, because I didn't find them particularly helpful for what I was looking at in projects. And I waited till the meeting to ask the questions that I had. But I did attend some. And I guess my problem with it is that why all of a sudden has this become a problem? I am a firm believer in transparency. And we have a whole series of laws, and if this is violating any law, I'd like to know about it. Particularly, Mr. Beam kind of indicated that these pre-meetings might violate some not statutory, but case law. But the Brown Act is our guidance, and this doesn't violate the Brown Act. My fellow commissioners at the time I was on the Planning Commission found them very helpful. When I did attend it, found nothing objectionable to them. I would not say that I would be in favor of these meetings simply because I would want to show support to the commission, however. It's that because I would find that it was helpful. And where is the volatility to anything in terms of what we're doing wrong in having them? It's less than a quorum. I mean, transparency you can take to an extreme sometimes, too. And I don't know of one matter that ever came before the Planning Commission in the 10 years that I was on it that I ever felt like, if the public had known about that discussion we had at the lunch, it would have been helpful. Because I found most of the time that if there was some important discussion that was had at lunch, it was discussed again at the meeting. So my feeling is that they were helpful, not necessarily to me, but to the other commissioners. We're not doing anything illegal. I just don't see what the need is that after 20 or 30 years, I was thinking about how long we must have been having these meetings, because I was on the Planning Commission for 10 years. I resigned from the Planning Commission in 2006. It's now 2015. So that means that it was at least 19 years we've been having these meetings. I know that they were going on before. Commissioner Merck had been on even before I was on there. And I just don't see the problem with these meetings. I sense that because there's some new perspectives, such as Mr. Wyrick's, Council Member Wyrick is a new council member. He's looking at things. He's looking at things that are uncomfortable to him because he thinks that there's an issue here, and it is an issue. I just don't think it's an issue that demands us to change something that's been going on for as long as it has. And that's the way that I feel about it. And I'm the first one to say that transparency is very important. But I don't see us losing transparency because of these pre-meetings. I just don't see it.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Claps, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Paul. This has been troubling me ever since this happened. You know how they say when something doesn't make sense, follow the money? Well, when something doesn't make sense in this situation, follow the politics. And as Mr. Shapiro stated and as other people have stated, there's something else going on here. And it's not about these pre-meetings. It's about two individuals in this community that are angry at the city. One in particular is so angry that for years this gentleman has been trying to do what he can to change the structure of our city government so he can get at our city manager and get him fired. That's the bottom line here. This is about a personal vendetta by an individual. And this individual has also sucked another individual that feels wronged by the city into it, who now has a personal vendetta. And this is what is driving this. And when I see personal vendettas driving the structure of our community in this manner, I can't keep my mouth shut. And what makes me even more disturbed about this matter is these two individuals serve on a board that had been appointed by this city council. And these individuals are out in the community talking smack about our staff and have an agenda, and that has been verbally expressed openly in other meetings in this community. Yes, we have an agenda. We want to change the structure of this community. We want control of this community. We're going to change it, and we're going to take control. We want to get this community down to 5 planning commissioners. We want it to be a charter city. We want an elected mayor that we can own. And the mayor happens to be, whether we admit it or not, appoints planning commissioners. And with an 80% reelection rate, we could end up with a good old boy network with a mayor having control of our planning commission. That's what this is about. So we can yak along all we want about whether we pay a lunch for these people, whether they're meeting and talking, whether it's a Brown Act violation or not. But let's get down to the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that Bob Daddy and William Ulrich have a bug up their behinds, and they are out to get whomever they can because they're angry. And I resent that, and I'm not going to change a damn thing because somebody's a vicious, angry individual. They're attacking this planning commission? How dare they? Their emails were Brown Act violations. They were lobbying council members to change policy. That's a Brown Act violation. They want transparency? What's transparent about that? These are not transparent gentlemen. These are men that are angry and have a personal vendetta, and they're not going to stop until they accomplish it. They already sucked the citizens into voting for an elected mayor. Now they want to, and I was told by the one individual, oh, I've just started. Wait till you see what I do next. He said that to me right after the elected mayor thing passed. Oh, you wait. I'm not done yet. So we can sit here and we can be polite and we can just all be real, follow protocols. But you know what? I'm done with that. And when I see two people stirring the pot and causing problems in our community, when we have a good city manager that has helped this community get its roads paved, get its infrastructure fixed, and we have a good council who's done some damn good things. And when I see two individuals out there that are so full of anger that they're infecting this community, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. I vote not to change a damn thing, period. That's where I'm at, and I'm done. Thank you very much.
If you could please refrain your applause, I understand. Again, I'm going to go to Councilmember Haney. Any comments?
I just, I don't feel comfortable getting into the personal attacks because that's okay, Betsy. I just don't want to go there. This is a great commission. I think this is obviously a great city, and we have a lot to be proud of. And there's just no reason to go to that level personally. Some of the things that I heard at the last council meeting was accurate and complete information, complex issues, and a need for clarification. Almost every one of the commissioners said that in between venting how they felt about Mr. Wyrick's letter and actually my support of Mr. Wyrick's letter. So I want to go to that, and I think that's what's lacking, and that's what's causing some of the problems that we have, is the lack of information that's being provided, and that information being in a timely manner, and that information being brought to the commissions, and in turn giving them the opportunity to research it, to question it, and to gather more information about it. So they might be overwhelmed with work, or they might be overwhelmed with lack of information. I don't know what it is, but I know it's right in that area. So that's the first thing I think we need to address, is I think we need to back off on how much or how hard we're pushing this commission to get things done, and allow the commission to work at its own pace and at its own abilities. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see staff provide that quality information in the appropriate time and for it to be complete. Now, getting back to the lunch and the breakfast menu, I'll be honest with you, when I first observed it, which was years ago, I thought there might be something wrong with it because I didn't have an understanding of the Brown Act. So having that understanding now, I don't have a problem with it. I might have a problem with the Q&A, and what I'd like in that, I'd like to see any of those discussions put in some type of memo form and attached to our agenda and have it brought forward so that the public sees what questions were asked and the public sees how the questions were responded to. I don't think that that's asking too much. I don't care whether it's here or whether it's there, but I think it needs to be noted and it needs to be put on record. And then getting back to the final thing that Mr. Beard said, and I agree with him, because on the very first page of the Planning Commission duties and responsibilities, it states special meetings. Now, I don't know if these lunch meetings are a special meeting. That's what you might be referring to. And a special meeting should be agendized. A special meeting should be put forth in a chamber and should be available for the public to come and see and question and have positive responses to. So I don't know if that's a special committee or a special meeting. If it is, then let's do that special meeting properly. If it's a Q&A regarding specific questions, regarding specific issues on projects, I don't have a problem with the community director sitting in and giving those responses. I would just like to see them in a memo form, and I'd like to see them publicized and put into our packet.
Councilmember Wyrick?
I think that's a really good point, and I would just like to make the additional comment that the easiest way to establish that record is simply to have these things be noticed and therefore they can be observed. You're asking to draft additional memos and Q&A, of course, is important. But again, I think, we're trying to go down the path of productivity and ease here. And it seems to me that it's just such a simple fix where you're establishing a public record simply by saying if somebody's interested and wants to come and watch, come and watch. On the issue of Councilman Clapp, I think the two chairs set a tone here of trying to address this on its merits, the issue on its merits. And I simply reject the idea that when we have an issue that needs to be looked at on its merits, that we conflate that with personal feeling. I'm not done. I know you're not. Okay, and then I just disagree with your approach to this matter. I think I brought it up on its merits completely, have stayed with that completely all the way through that, and I think that's the way these things should be discussed. Finally, I have a question for staff. Mr. Summers, or Ms. Wald, or Mr. Clark, I have a feeling that probably because this issue's been coming up for so long, there may have been some work looking at examples in other cities. And I was wondering if you have examples in other cities of pre-meetings, agenda meetings, technical meetings for planning commissions, and if you have other examples, how those other cities handle it.
I can speak to a couple of examples. My law firm is general counsel for 10 cities, including this city. In our other 9 cities, there are no established planning commission pre-meetings, the same way that it has been the practice here. But in the ones that I'm most familiar with, the ones here in Southern California, the practice has been to have planning commissioners call the staff with questions. And most of those cities are a bit larger with the larger staff, so they have several planners, and the planning commissioners would call the planner on each project. So that way it isn't always routed through the director, which helps with that, the productivity and workflow issue. But usually they'll call the planner on the project with questions about a particular project and say, I've got this issue, can you present it? The other approach that we've seen used for particularly complex projects, but not necessarily every project, is to have this type of a concept review or agenda workshop ahead of time, and it's done as a special meeting with full notice and opportunity for public comment. I'll note on the public comment question raised by Commissioner Nicklin that any meeting of a Brown Act body that is the Planning Commission or the City Council would have to have an opportunity for public comment. That public comment opportunity varies. If it's a regular meeting, then the public comment has to be both allowed on items not on the agenda but within the body's purview and on any items on the agenda. If it's a special meeting, which I think would be the model used here, then it has to be allowed on any items on the agenda. Note that a public comment period is different than a full public hearing. I think the approach here would probably be to have a public, if you go the agenda workshop route, a public comment provision, but not a formal public hearing, in part because there wouldn't be any action taken. It would be just a discussion. And that's the model that I've seen used, but it's only been limited to particularly complex projects or ones where there's known to be a substantial amount of public interest that would effectively mean that it also enables a bit of management in terms of time. If you expect to have 4 hours of public comment on a project, it makes sense to divide the discussion up into 2 meetings.
So just to be clear, you're not aware of any practice of regular non-notice pre-meetings that you've come across in other cities?
Not in the cities I've worked in.
Thank you.
I do want to give the commissioners a chance to see if they have any questions or comments.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to respond first.
Okay, but I just want to make sure that we stay on task and we're here at a joint
That's
meeting.
fine.
So we're getting into the decision when I think we haven't gotten enough comments from the commissioners.
That's fine,
so.
but I still have something to say.
Councilmember Platt.
Thank you very much. First of all, these were not personal attacks. They were comments about behaviors. I'm sure they both love their families, love their children, love their grandchildren. And as far as bringing up the matter and talking about another issue, this is about another issue. That's why I brought it up. This is a red herring. So we're wasting all this time. That's why I brought it up. This is a red herring about an entire another issue. And we're getting distracted talking about something that isn't really the problem that's going on in this city. The problem is not this commission. Not even close is the problem this commission. The problem is that if there's a problem with the commission, it's in the Building Appeals Board. They're overstepping their authority, number one. Number two, they're violating the Brown Act and they're not transparent. And are they the ones being attacked? Are they the ones being questioned? Are they the ones that this body that should be bringing before them and saying you are behaving inappropriately? Who's being attacked here? A body that I have seen do absolutely nothing wrong. So it's not a personal attack. I'm talking about the real issue, not about the red herring. And it's not a personal attack, it's an attack on behavior. Two very different things. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments? I'm gonna just give the commission an opportunity because I feel like this is becoming a council meeting and a debate, and which is fine. We could go there. I'm absolutely open to it, but I just want to make sure that the planning commissioners have their time, their comments, their response to these options that have been thrown and the issues, because I just want to make sure that nothing is not said. So I see Commissioner Lozgowski.
Lejowski. I think that, we've already spent an hour on this. We get to meet with the city council once a year, and I think, once a quarter, I feel like, as Councilmember Blatt said, it is much ado about nothing. It's pretty clear this is not a violation of anything. It's been approved every year for however many decades by the city council as a line item in the budget. We have much more substantial information to go over, and I feel like let's just move on, and keep the pre-meetings as they have been, and let's get down to some real issues. Our staff is extremely overburdened as it is. I think, that should have been on the agenda tonight. Do we need more staff? Yes. Do we need more trainings? Yes. Let's talk about real things. That's what I have to say.
Any more comments from commissioners? No. Yes, Commissioner Isabella. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I will have it. I will have it memorized by
Okay.
next
Okay.
quarter meeting.
All right.
Yes. I apologize.
I just think that it was very brave for Councilmember Clapp to say what she did. It's hard to speak the truth. This has been a 20-year practice, and within the space of 3 days, suddenly, the emails from Mr. Daddy and Mr. Ulrich, which I'll point out, called us devious, disgusting, incompetent, unprepared, and they accused us of colluding with Councilmember Clapp and City Manager Clark. Within 2 days, 3 days of those emails appearing to the City Council, Mr. Wyrick picked up where they left off. I just think the timing is more than a coincidence. The fact that almost the entire council registered an opinion to stop these pre-meetings before any public input was had, particularly from we commissioners, was really disturbing. You guys are supposed to wait for public comment and then make a decision, but you'd already made your minds up. That's very disturbing to me. Nobody said, hey, what are these people doing? Why are they writing these nasty emails? Instead, they said, yeah, we should stop pre-meetings. I've done a lot of research in the last 6 weeks because clearly this was a red herring, as Councilmember Clapp points out. And not only did I find more emails that suggest that there is an agenda at work here, but there are members on the Building Appeals Board who have come right out and said we have an agenda, and our agenda is to contract the Planning Commission from 7 members to 5 members and to make sure that those people are only residents of the city. In the meantime, these same people have said we are going to move to have a charter city that will invest the mayor with full authority to make all appointments. Now, to say that it's a personal attack, to connect the dots, is just naive. It's not a personal attack, it's just connecting the obvious dots. If you narrow a planning commission from 7 people to 5 people, you now only need 3 people to control. And to narrow the applicant pool significantly really invests one person, the mayor, with all land use control. Mm-hmm. This city council does owe us a real apology. And although I think Mr. Wyrick started out correctly by apologizing, I don't think you can say, I apologize, but I'm right. I feel like the council rushed to judgment, and I think you failed to protect your volunteer constituents. We are your constituents. Don't forget that. And you failed to protect us. I think you need to publicly censure or fire the people who are fomenting chaos. And I think you need to make a powerfully public statement of support for the Planning Commission by letting the pre-meeting stand as a measure of your confidence in us. At the end of the day, I am a peacemaker at heart. Sometimes that requires standing up to bullies. And sometimes it requires acknowledging that even bullies may want what's best for Ojai, but don't know how to achieve that in a straightforward manner. As I urged you the last time we met, please take control of the situation and the conversation and restore civility and stability to City Hall.
Any other comments from commissioners? No, I am going to chime in, and I do want to make sure that there's a lot of accusations going around. There's a lot of connecting the dots, and I do appreciate you, everybody coming out with their opinions. But this is the fact. It's council has, as a whole, whatever it decides, has the authority to implement whatever they want if the majority agree. If we look at all our emails and we look at everybody that's lobbying us for different situations, there's an agenda out there with everybody, with every special interest group. It's unfortunate that these emails are done. We get them all the time from different special interest groups. You more than you could look at my emails. It's just not from two people. It's from many other people. But there's, I think, in essence, there was a valid issue about these pre-meetings that the public could misconceive and perception, misperception, sometimes reality. And I want to make sure that our commissioners are not being labeled as trying to conspire to a decision behind closed doors. That's the last thing I want. And that's why I think that this issue is important. If there's questions that are happening in these pre-meetings, and I like Council Members Haney's idea, let's write him up, present him to the public. They could actually generate and stimulate thoughtful questions from other residents. This is, I mean, in terms of having more honest input, I think it's just a good practice, just in general. I've never accused any planning commissioner of anything. I've never thought about it. I've always respected your work. I've always respected your volunteer. If you go back and view our videos, it is important. But whenever an issue comes up, it is our responsibility to bring it up, whether true or not, and have it been displayed in the public forum. And that's where I stand. It's unfortunate that some people do have their agenda, but I think it is the council as a majority to set the tone. And again, that's why it's important that we really separate ourselves from these emails, because we have no connection with them at all. So other than them being named, we being sent to us. Again, there's a lot of emails that go around, but to me, there could be a valid issue with this. And if the council decides not to the council decides to not change it, we don't change it. But we just want to make sure that we participate in the public's eyes, and therefore, and hearing Mayor Pro Tem Blatt's comments, and that is an insight to us that these pre-meetings do benefit you guys, and we don't want to take. I want to make sure as a council member that I supply you guys with, or we supply you with every resource that you need. And again, I'm going to turn back to Chair Foster for any other comments that he has, or if not, then.
Chair Foster.
I believe we have some planning commissioners.
Okay, and we'll start down the road, Commissioner Nolan.
Well, when I spoke earlier in the meeting, I made it clear that I think there's two things going on here. And, you know, unfortunately, Councilman Wyrick's email did follow this other email. And it wasn't just that somebody had an agenda. And as Commissioner Zabila pointed out, the language was very clear and degrading. And it did point out, it didn't actually say our names, but it did point out architect, landscape architect, well, we know who that is, and actually use their name. So it's almost, you know, a slanderous email. And I think the question is, and Councilmember Clapp did point this out, was this the thing that initiated this? If somebody could just answer that, maybe we could just clear that up and
Could I
move
answer
forward.
it?
Please, thank you.
Since I'm the one that brought it to the council. For the record, when I was running for office, I found out about this, and it bothered me. I had conversations with the community development director about it, saying it made me uncomfortable. I've been thinking about it for a long time, and kind of let it go in the back of my mind, and then what actually triggered it was what triggered my actually going ahead and writing something up, saying, it's time to get my concerns in writing and bring it to the rest of the council. That's what went through my mind. Was an email that was sent to Mr. Bill Miley, who I think you all know, that had to do with a email that was sent to him and to a lot of other past council members. In other words, past council members on previous pre-meeting notifications were apparently getting notifications of these pre-meetings. This old email thread had all kinds of people, a long list of notifications of these pre-meetings. Mr. Miley got that. Somehow he was on that list. He sent it to me, says, what's this all about? And so that's what triggered, I said, it's time to write down what I think about this and bring it to the council. And I already apologize for not bringing it to the Planning Commission first. That was my mistake. But it did occur to me that if there was very wide notice of these pre-meetings in the past, what would be wrong with taking the next step and simply publicly noticing them? And that's what generated my sitting down and writing down my thoughts to share with the council.
Mr. Mayor, I have one real
Councilmember.
quick question. If we are so concerned about pre-meetings with the Planning Commission, why aren't we concerned about the behavior of board members that are writing nasty accusatory emails to another commission? Why is that allowed to just continue with nothing said? Why? I don't understand.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Council Mayor Pro Tem Blatz.
This is I think I've made my feelings known, that I'm kind of an insider on this one, so that I don't have a problem with these meetings. So what I'm about to say is I think that it was a legitimate issue to raise. Because for somebody that hasn't lived through these meetings, you don't know what goes on at those meetings, and it could raise a question of some sort of a violation, although 3 planning commissioners could get together and totally decide a project as to the way that they're going to vote, and nobody's ever going to know the difference. And it's not going to be any violation, other than an ethical violation, but no violation of the Brown Act. I am a true believer that people should be able to do and say whatever they want to do and say. I'm fair game as an elected official. I feel very badly that appointed people that are volunteers in our community have to feel attacked by people. As far as I'm concerned, because I'm elected, I'm fair game for whatever anybody wants to say about me. They're welcome to say it. And if I can't back up what a decision process I've made is, then that's my problem, not theirs. I don't see it as a problem with a planning commissioner coming out and complaining about some aspect of city operations, nor do I see it a problem with anybody on the Building Appeals Board coming out and saying something what they agree or disagree with. I think it's a legitimate issue to bring up. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that this never should have been brought up. I think it's unfortunate that Councilman Wyrick brought it up right on the coattail of those other emails that were floating around. I find that to be very unfortunate because it made him look like it was coming in as the result of that, and I don't believe it was. So I believe that everybody has the right to raise these issues. I just don't think that we should do anything about it. I think it's going along fine now. We ought to leave it just the way it is. But I would never disparage anybody from bringing the issue forward. And I certainly would never want to stifle comment, no matter how vehement it might be in our community, because that's one of the rights that we all have.
Mr. Blatz, it wasn't from our community, it was from within our own organization, and our own organization has a code of ethics. And as you know, and I know, codes of ethics are a very important matter. It's not about the freedom of speech. It's about a code of ethics that we have within our organization. It says right here, we will be respectful and considerate of each other and all those we serve. And that is not what's happening. We appoint board members, we appoint commission members. And when we have our appointees saying nasty things about other appointees, and we sit here and don't do anything, what message are we sending our community? And why would anybody want to volunteer to serve on any commission or any board if this council is willing to allow this kind of activity and this kind of behavior to go on within our organization? It's not free speech. This is a violation of our code of ethics.
Right, I've said what everything I've said.
Again, I want to give, if any of the other commissioners, I know there's been a couple that haven't spoken, if you have anything to say, I just want to make sure that you feel free to participate.
I just wanted to quickly touch on my emails, that they're in a private server in my garage. And prior to the meeting tonight, I erased as many of them as I could. Just wanted to get that out there in front and center. Okay. Again, the first thing, just everyone look in this room. Everyone who's on the city council has served on a commission. Well, you missed out. But, I'm just saying that we all value dedicating ourselves to this community. And we all value you as commissioners. So we need to be clear on that. I don't think this has ever started out as being a devaluation of you. We honestly support you, we recognize your need, and we recognize what you bring to the city. So if that's what if you need to hear that, you've heard it, and I really mean it, and I'm sure I'm speaking for every councilman right now. Okay, so I wanted to clarify that. The second thing is I want to get back to the points. And all testimony on an agendized item before the Planning Commission must be shared with the public as part of the public record. I just believe that. Okay, if you're having a discussion, open it up. You have nothing to hide. Any question that you have to Kathleen or to the city attorney, well, there's no reason for it not to be put out into the ethers of the public. Let them know, okay? Second of all, we have to conduct city business in a public manner so that citizens can easily understand the process, the procedures, the policies. That's what we're here for. That's their right. That's the bottom line. So, what the discussion is tonight is an appearance of transparency, whether it's good or bad, or it is or it isn't. Again, I'm going to go back to what I would like to see done. I would like to see the meetings kept where they are. I would just like any discussion that takes place at those meetings to be recorded some way, somehow, and placed on our packets, on the planning packets, and on our website if need be, so that the public has access to it. And I think that's what's the question here is tonight, is how are we going to achieve that?
I'm going to, again, invite anybody from the commission input. Commissioner Mort.
Thank you, Mayor Lower. Randy, actually, I think if we did that, we'd be violating the Brown Act. Because the point of these meetings is that we have 3 commissioners at a time meeting. Their discussion is not shared with the rest of the commission. So we can't do that. I mean, I appreciate your sentiment, but I don't think there's any way to do that and still meet the requirements of the Brown Act.
And that could be actually a question to our city attorney if you want to ask if there's
okay.
if we could do that or not.
I have a number of notes here, and I would just like to say that this whole thing is a two-way street. People are talking about the implication of, they're implying that there's some kind of collusion going on, that we're having meetings and not discussing with public. It works the other way as well. We as commissioners feel like by allowing this discussion to come forward and allowing these emails and things to circulate, it really gives the appearance that certain citizens are implying that people on these commissions are behaving in some criminal manner. And I think that's a real disservice to the people that volunteer their time to be on these commissions. I think part of the point of what we're doing is that we're amateurs on these meetings. We're not, we don't know planning law and all that sort of thing. And a big part of these meetings is bringing everyone up to speed on what the issues are on a particular item and having a chance to ask really stupid questions about things that I wouldn't want to say in a public meeting, but, you know, it's great to be able to sit down with Kathleen and say, what's the deal here, you know? So I think these meetings are incredibly valuable, and I hope that you will leave this policy in place.
I'm kind of torn on this because I'm a very pragmatic person, and I kind of look at solutions to things. And at the same time, I find it very hard to separate the and how this process began. I'm new to the commission. I'm about a little over a year into it. And when I became a commissioner, I was told that this was the protocol. We were to have these pre-meetings, and it was an opportunity for us to review these very thick, complicated packets and clarify certain items in the packet. And that would help us, like Commissioner Merck said, ask the stupid questions that we really don't want to ask in public. And if you've seen the size of these packets that we get sometimes, they are very complicated. And so there's just a need to have a discussion. Now, what you're saying is, well, have that discussion in public. My thought was we were having it in public. We were in the middle of the restaurant. And I've never been quiet at those meetings. In fact, we've yelled over the voices of everybody sitting next to the tables next to us. In fact, people have overheard our conversations and piped in. I never felt that, you know, I never felt, first of all, I was told that this was one of our protocols, and the idea that somehow this was construed as dubious and devious activity was a shock to me. And I can't separate the fact that we're having this meeting because of that. So I'm in support. I believe in the pre-meetings, also because I think they're efficient to the city. We have 1 hour of breakfast, 1 hour of lunch, and Kathleen is spending her breakfast and her lunch where she could be going somewhere else with us. It's not even on the city time clock. And here she is spending that time with us to clarify. So it's very efficient in that way. And it's very public. Again, this is much ado about nothing. And I support just leaving things the way they are and moving forward to more important items on the agenda, like the second unit compliance program.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to leave the pre-meetings as they are.
I don't think, are we allowed to make any motion? It's not on our agenda. It's more of a joint meeting.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I just want to, because I want to make a clarification, and if I'm wrong, because I haven't been on the commission for a while, tell me. But you hear about these lunches, and then you hear about breakfasts and all that. My understanding is that, and when I was on the commission, part of the time it was 3 lunches, and it was always 3 commissioners had lunch on one day, 3 had lunch on another, and then there was one oddball out, and it usually was the chair, but it didn't have to be had another day. Well, during one of the years when I can't remember who was chair, that it wasn't a very convenient time, or it might not even have been a chair for one of the members to attend a luncheon. So it was decided, okay, well then we'll have a breakfast. But it's not as though each planning commissioner is going to a breakfast and a lunch. It's one or the other, depending on when you're assigned. And it's never the same planning commissioners in the mix every single month. It's always rotated. Now, the breakfast may be one, I'm not sure about that anymore, but it's mixed up every month, and you're only attending one meeting. I didn't want the public to be left with the impression that you might be going to a couple of lunches and a breakfast.
Yes,
Can we get one clarification from
yeah.
the city attorney regarding the taking of
Of
the
a motion?
questions and writing them down and
Okay.
presenting them. How is that, is that a violation or is that not a violation?
It would depend on exactly what the written communications were. The problem that would arise would be if there was a communication of the views of less than a quorum of the body to other members of the body that would amount to a quorum. In other words, if the memo that was added to the packet about the pre-meeting said that Commissioner X asserted this issue with the project, and that was then given to the whole packet, that would be a communication of more than a quorum's worth of views to the body ahead of a public meeting, because the packets are distributed ahead of the meeting. If instead the memo was a recitation of facts added to the record, or was a recitation of questions and answers, then I think it wouldn't violate the Brown Act. So it would be a matter of carefully crafting the memo regarding what was discussed at the pre-meetings to ensure that it didn't communicate the views amount to communicating the views of a majority of the body via a collection of written memoranda. And on the other question that was raised with regard to tonight's discussion item, it was agendized as a discussion of protocols as part of a workshop, so I don't think that it would be appropriate to take a formal action. It rather would be appropriate to assess the sense of the council and then direct staff to bring back a document for formal adoption if one is needed at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try to wrap this meeting up because it's getting to the time. So I just want to give the commission, again, an opportunity. Anybody else with any more comments? Chair Foster, your thoughts?
Well, I pretty much echo the comments made by my fellow commissioners. I think it's a situation where tonight's activities is to make any progress. I think it's been laid out on the table, and I'm glad to see that happen. I think we've voiced our concerns. I don't think the issue's over, the main issue's over here, but I would like to address the pre-meeting issue. That's something we can actually wrap our minds around, and I think that's important to do that. But rest assured that this is going to come back in one form or another, and it's out there now.
Any other comments from our council members? No? What?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I would like to direct staff to come back with a no action to be taken motion. I mean, how would you do that? I mean, I would like to, how do you go about finding out from city council whether or not we do or do not want to take action on this matter? Whether we want to change protocols or not?
So I think you need to put it on a council agenda,
Okay.
and then the council can make a decision on what, if anything, you want to do.
But if we take no action happens and the meetings continue.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll make sure to put that on the agenda.
No, wait a minute, maybe we don't want to put it on the agenda.
But I think.
You just said
yeah.
if we take no action, the meetings continue.
I think as myself, and I am, I think this issue is well televised and well known to our public, and they deserve an answer. And again, I am new as a council member. I am open to issues that come out, whichever way they happen. And again, I'm also a big believer in letting people unfortunately voice their opinions. But I want to make sure there's some type of closure to this. And I want to make sure that the commission understands, at least, and I think I heard it all across the council, that we do support you guys. And however it came out, it's unfortunate, but there is true confidence and trust in your ability to execute your work. And that's loud and clear. And if it's being mumbled by noises below, it's unfortunate, but I don't know how to be more clear than that. And I do want to say that any more comments, opinions, you could always feel free to email us. You could always feel free to give us a call. You could always feel free to do however way you want to communicate with us. I'm open to it, just like I am with anybody else. So with that, I do want to adjourn the meeting, and I really appreciate your comments and look forward to further collaboration. Thank you.
Have enough something?
Revised guidelines for the second unit compliance program. Unfortunately, there's 5 minutes left. And if you guys have comments, then I think we'll use those 5 minutes to hear those. Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner.
You all have a document that I created this morning, and I sent to Kathleen Wald for distribution. And it outlines in detail why the Planning Commission should be allowed to review the revisions that were made by the Building Appeals Board to Planning Commission decisions. I'm going to request that this be put into the record, but talk about a process that lacks transparency and is a disservice to the public. There was a joint meeting that provided for Building Appeals Board to look at Section 9 of second unit compliance and Planning Commission to look at Section 10. Both parties, both boards finished their work, their meetings reflected that they were complete, and then somehow this council allowed the Building Appeals Board to get the decisions made by the Planning Commission and revise them, unbeknownst to us. And had you not run out of time on the 28th, you would have potentially ratified decisions that we didn't make. So again, talk about a lack of transparency. Building Appeals Board has a serious case of mission creep. And I think we need to be really clear what their purview is. And certainly getting into decisions made by the Planning Commission seems wildly inappropriate. And I'm going to ask that this matter be continued, that the Planning Commission be allowed to see the decisions that were changed by them before this goes back to City Council during a regular Planning
We'll
Commission.
look at that request, but I do want to make sure that our commission also gets opportunity, our staff, the opportunity to see if those comments that Commissioner Sabilla made are reflected on our staff report that we got, if they actually comment or actually erase some of the comments that the planning commissioners had originally recommended.
Are you saying you'd like this on a future agenda? Is that what you just
No,
said?
I just want staff to clarify and see if the staff report that we have right now makes overriding decisions by the appeals board to what the planning commissioners recommended. Because I just heard that the Buildings Appeals Board had the opportunity to re-look at the planning commission's recommendations and basically recommend something else. Revise them.
So in response to that question, the staff report that you have on your regular council agenda presents the Planning Commission recommendations in one color, in the Building Appeals Board recommendations, which in some cases are different, in balloons.
So is
you
the
have,
answer
you have
yes
both.
or-
I think the issue that's being raised is that the Planning Commission hasn't had a chance to weigh in on the comments that the Building Appeals Board made on planning and zoning matters, and they're asking that they be given that opportunity.
Okay, and then the process, because there was a comment by Commissioner Sabella saying that we allowed it, the council. I do want to make sure that we're not, because I was unaware of the process or how many meetings were taken on this issue. All I know is that it's been 3 years since it's been going on, and I wanted to bring it up to up on the agenda because I don't want to push it more. That's the reasoning for me not to bring it up. I'm not saying that we allowed the Buildings Appeals Board to look at it twice. I don't know why that happened or how that happened during the process, but I just want to make sure I clarify our positions, that we're not looked like we're trying to give more discrepancy to one board than another, because we don't. I mean, that's not the whole point of this. Commissioner Nolan?
Thank you, Mayor Laura. Excuse me. I just wanted to make a comment that, yes, this, both the Appeals Board and the Planning Commission each had a section to work on. And we finished our section first, then the Building Appeals Board finished theirs. They in turn commented on our portion. I'm not necessarily opposed to that because it was a joint project or document, but the Planning Commission was not given the opportunity to look at the entire document, meaning comments from both parties. So it would only make sense that we would both get to look at it. In addition, we'd be looking at the portion that they wrote, if that's indeed the way it's going, and it looks like it is. So I think just for clarity's sake, number one, but it also gets out of, whose jurisdiction, so to speak. In other words, can they make comments or recommendations on what we did without us having a chance to look at it and respond?
Okay. No, and that's a fair argument. I think we'll bring it up when the items approaches and we'll get a staff report on those issues. And I appreciate it. Again, thank you guys. I thought it went good. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just as far as a procedural issue, this matter of the pre-meetings was brought up by Councilman Wyrick, and I think that because he brought it up and it was when it was agendized, I think it should come back for a formal resolution. And I didn't hear that that's what we were directing staff to do.
I decided that, yes, we will bring it back because I feel like we need to bring some closure, and whatever that closure might be, we'll discuss amongst ourselves. But we do appreciate your comments. We take them with a lot of attention, and we'll go from there. Thank you, guys.